Oh yeah, I used to have a boss like that we used to play games with once in a while, me and a buddy, and it was kind of cold, but on the other hand, it was kind of funny that we would start talking about a certain illness, and so and so looks sick. Dave looks really sick, you go over and talk to Dave. Dave looks sick. I think he's been throwing up all morning long, and he goes walking over to my buddy Dave, and the boss can't see me, but I'm motioning to Dave that, like, hey, Dave, act like you're getting sick, like you're throwing up, And Dave says, man, my stomach. He starts going to stomach, and I start giving him all this body language on what to do. And we did this one day, and we realized that he started having the same symptoms that we described. And what was great about it, well, what was great about it from our respect is he left work. he got sick and he had to go. So this is a routine that we pulled maybe 2 or 3 times, about 3 times probably, when we wanted to get rid of him because he was being a real pain in the butt to us that day. Then we start pulling that routine, and next thing you know, an hour and a half later, he's going to the doctor. But in all seriousness, though, out of suggestion that sometimes that can become a problem. And going back to your thing earlier about George Knapp, by the way, George Knapp, they've invited him to a number of the MUFON conferences because, again, he's got his he does the news broadcast out of Las Vegas. He's very big into UFOs, Skinwalker Ranch, etc. And MUFON does like to put on individuals to talk at their conferences like that. The thing the conferences do for me is when you go out to them, it's kind of like a thing that you get to meet a lot of other people. You get to learn, get to network with people out there, social network. You get to hear a lot of stories, and you're always hoping for those stories to come out that don't come out in any book or any TV show someplace, that you hear the real stuff.
Right.
So
they used to have it used to be a cattle ranch, so they used to have a lot of cattle on there. Do they still have cattle on the ranch?
I don't know if they've got cattle out there now, but the one owner said that his cattle were dying off so much he'd lost I think it was about 30% of his stock, and this breed of cattle he had was fairly expensive, and that's why he got out, because he was losing his whole investment.
And was that from
dying off?
Was that from mutilation, kind of?
That was from dying, and then he was saying that they were mutilated. That he was one talking about them being mutilated that looked like they were done surgically.
Well, now there's got to be other cattle ranches around the area. Has anyone checked to see if some of their cattle has been mutilated also? And it could be coyotes, wolves, or something else doing that instead of this mysterious thing on Skinwalker Ranch.
Oh, you're right. I mean, in my quick search I didn't do a super in-depth search, because I know there's different ones I could take and turn to their websites, and some of them get very much into the mutilation. But the bad part, though, under Henry, is when you go to their websites, they're promoting, these subjects. Mutilation has to be done by aliens, etc. And by the way, if you want to join my website, it costs you so much a month. The question is, where is that line between where everything is truly fact at, and then where everything becomes maybe assumptions at, or it leads you out in another direction just to pull in people to view the website. That's where I'm hesitant about, and that's why when I look for information, there's different ones that I'm very hesitant about their websites, about the accuracy of the data. Because at one time their data may have been very good, the facts may have been very accurate, but then again, as time goes on, are those same standards being kept, let's say? Or are you not just looking for the next donor?
Right.
That's the problem I've really got.
So I would love for you to be out there, Thomas, but for a different reason. And that is one thing that I haven't seen there yet is any evidence that they brought someone out who's been an abductee or anybody with any sort of psychic ability to see what they're picking up and if that would make a difference in the activity.
That was really the biggest reason I wanted to go there myself.
There you go. See, we would have somebody who's been an abductee.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like a road trip.
Yep. I'm ready.
I don't doubt if I don't know if I would get on or not, because in the one picture of the ranch, I did see the guy that looked like he had an AR-15 standing at the gate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You'd have to be invited, that's for sure.
Well, I'm hesitant about going around places where they have AR-15s and gates. Because there's on something totally off the subject. A number of years ago, my daughter danced ballet, and she went to Taiwan to perform for a few weeks. And I volunteered to go along to with the company because I designed out their props. I designed out all their props at the time to disassemble and be able to be transported on board aircraft. So I went over to make sure they could put everything back together, and also went along as security, because at the time I was training very, very heavy in the martial arts. My weight, by the way, I wasn't like the elephant I look like now, who can only get his black belt around once. My black belt went around my waist multiple times at that time. And what I went over there. Now, this is where you get the awakening on there, Henry, when you just walked into a different country. I got off the plane in Taiwan, and they went to run my passport through customs, and they said, I made out in Chinese that my passport was invalid. And I'm like, no, it's perfectly valid. And they ran it through like 3-4 times. And then they called down this guy that was head of customs. And he went with an interpreter that went to meet me there from a representative from a Chinese group. Well, they went to run my passport through some place else in customs, and they told me to stand in this fenced-in area. Ooh. And I had two guards standing at the gate of this fenced-in area with automatic rifles. And that's when Toto, you learn you're not in Kansas anymore.
You're not in Kansas anymore.
And one of my friends says, come on out here and tell me what's going on. I said, if you don't mind, I'd rather not. And he goes, well, who told you? I said, the guy standing in front of me with the automatic rifles. They said, don't move. So if you don't mind, I'm not going to move. But they got everything cleared up, and there's a whole nother story behind that. But you really learn at that point. It's a different culture. But when I saw that AR-15 in that picture, I thought of the flashback going back years ago. So, I really would like to go out there, Barbara. I mean, I hope they're listening to the show. I'd really love to go out and look at the ranch from my viewpoint of, somebody that may have to be able to sense unusual activity going on that's not being picked up on camera, not being picked up on EMF detectors of any sort, and, look at things from a different perspective.
Well, also, if you've had any sort of ability that you can sort of pick up on any type of communication, it would seem to me that would be interesting. If the voices from those burned out ranch buildings were indeed alien.
Exactly. And now, this is really weird, Barbara, but before you mentioned that, I had a vision popping up of those buildings in my mind and walking through those buildings. And you're right. I just really wonder if I could sense something. Like when you hear those voices, is there something more to it? Do I discern not just a voice, but maybe what that voice is originating from? Is there something much more to it?
How I know that there's a distance between ranches, but how far do you think a voice or sound would travel that you might be hearing from a distance?
From what I could see, just from the show the other night, it looked like the closest ranch was maybe like 5 miles or more away. I'm just guessing. And when you look at Google Earth, again, it looks like a fair distance too. And I can't see voices traveling like 5 miles at night. I could picture, maybe, and again, I'm just going off the top of my head here, maybe about half the length of a football field, maybe a football field, depending on how quiet the region is, because I wonder how much, background noise you may have, because there are oil wells in the region. There's other activity like that they may be picking up. Looking at one of the maps in front of me right now, there's a tower. I don't know how many miles it is away, maybe 5 or 10 miles away from the ranch. It's about 300 feet high. There's a little small, I wouldn't call it a city, a little small town maybe called Roosevelt, which is kind of off to the northwest. That I don't know how much, noise you'd be picking up from that. But there's not much in that region. I mean, when they're talking about towns, you're talking about just a little small cluster of homes, basically, Henry.
Wow.
But I'm thinking maybe on a good night, half a football field, maybe a football field in length, you could hear somebody.
Now, since they've taken over this ranch, they have put up high-powered video cameras and all over the ranch. So, have they said if they've ever caught anything like Skinwalker transforming from one thing to another?
No, I haven't seen anything along those lines. Pretty much the only thing I've seen is, along the effects of like an aura appearing along the like a ridge,
right,
mountain ridge. I've seen like some things that appear to almost be like meteors maybe coming down. You can see some stars off at a distance, but not like any beings walking across the ground, transforming things along those lines. At least those stories haven't been made available. And the thing that, that we're not going to know, because it's probably not going to come out, is what did Bigelow's group find, because they'd had that ranch for 10 plus years.
Right.
Did they catch something that is never just going to come out? I mean, maybe he just got to the point that, okay, either maybe they ran across stuff that they couldn't explain, that they started getting intimidated, and maybe they said, maybe it's time we just back out. We don't want to be involved with this because we have no clue what's going on.
Uh-oh, what's that?
That's Jeff.
Jeff?
Jeff, was he watching?
I was looking. No, I was looking something up, and the stupid thing had a soundtrack to it.
I thought you were watching Kung Fu Theater there for a second, Jeffrey.
Wow.
There's so many things, though, Henry. I'd love to do a road trip to that region out there. I really would. Because there's just so much stuff, so many questions I have that aren't answered, that maybe they're going to answer them in upcoming episodes of their TV show. Able to get the number of those. But the biggest thing is, like what Barbara brought up, I'd like to walk the grounds myself to see if I have any sensations of activity going on of any sort that I can sense. And I'm hesitant sometimes about saying that, like the psychic, feelings, but basically that's what it is. It's like a psychic type feeling that something's going on.